Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another 4 p.m. Bible study. My name is Jim Schaefer, and this is Cooper. He's glad that I'm back home, and I hope you are as well. We spent the last 2 weeks on vacation and enjoying time with family, and especially with Max and Jim and Jen. We went to Universal Studios with them, and they then continued on to Disney World. I had enough fun, and so I came on home. But I'm really glad that you are here and that you're a part of today's Bible study. I see Jeff Pugh is first in the house. Hello, Jeff. I'm glad that you're here. I hope you and Kim and your family are doing well. Let me see if I can get a little better picture here. I see two of me. I see a picture of me in the mirror back there. That's not real good. Well, what are you going to do about it at this point in time? At any rate, I'm glad you guys are here. And it's interesting that, seeing pictures of my grandson at Disney World, and especially standing in front of Cinderella's castle, I don't know whether that kind of triggered me along this line or not, but sometimes it's amazing how things come together. The individual that I was preparing for today's lesson, and I'll tell you a little bit about that because it's actually going to be on Thursday. One of the things that I was using was, how tall is the castle? I have no idea. At any rate, one of the sites that I was using is a Hebrew Christian site that looks at the Old Testament with the Hebrew eyes, and I thought that was fascinating. And they sent me an email, and the title of the email last week was The Cinderella Cycle. And that kind of confused me. But because family was there, I took a look at that particular study, and I was amazed. And it has kind of grown into my Bible study for today. So I hope you find it interesting. Corey has pointed out that the Cinderella castle is 200 feet tall. Now that is some very important, useless information. No, I'm sorry, Corey, I don't know that it's useless, but I would have never guessed nor surmised that it was 200 feet tall. Most of us like Disney World, and most of us have liked Disney movies in the past. Now, the company seems to be going down a little different path that a lot of us aren't comfortable with. In fact, many of the fairy tales that have been, used in the past are looked at with some suspicion by Christians today. But I think you'll find that what I'm about to share with you concerning Cinderella is really a rather unique and very Christian in its principles. Well, I think all of us have heard the story or the fairy tale called Cinderella. I mean, it's basically prince meets girl. Prince loses girl, literally, after she deserts him at the stroke of midnight. And then, after a long search, Prince finds girl again at last. Now, figuring prominently in the fairy tale is that famous glass slipper. Only by locating the one dainty little foot that fits inside the slipper will Prince Charming live happily ever after with his beloved. Well, that's kind of the basic story now, isn't it? It's interesting that there have been as many as 800 Cinderella-like stories in human history. Many of them are extremely old. And yet this theme that we find in the story of Cinderella seems to happen again and again and again. It's basically a story of redemption, a story of good triumphing over evil. It's a story of virtue, and as a result, it has many parallels found in the Bible. Now, it might surprise you a little bit to find that there's a Cinderella story in the Bible. Why don't you take a guess right now? Which Bible story do you think most captures the essence of the traditional Cinderella story? Go ahead and give me your guess in the comments. In fact, as you question and wonder about that, I might suggest that there is more than one. And so don't be too hesitant to change. We've got guesses like Joseph, certainly kind of a rags to riches type story. We have the story of Ruth. Anybody else have any of the other ideas of who it might be? I'm looking for you. Come on, Gene. You can come up with something. Anybody else? Well, one of the Cinderella stories in the Bible might have come from the story or the courtship of Rebecca, taken from Genesis chapter 24 as the classic Cinderella story. Now, there's no glass slipper in this tale, but there is a gold nose ring, all right, that is very prominent. When everything is said and done, against incredible odds, Isaac and Rebekah are united. And through them, God's covenant with Abraham, that is his descendants, will be as as the stars of the heavens. Now, let me kind of tell you this story. This is not the only story that I think deals with the Cinderella theme, but let me tell it to you anyways as we kind of move forward. I want to welcome Linda Hernandez. Hi, Linda. I'm glad that you're here today as well. Well, Abraham, if you remember, Abraham was the man that God had promised that he would make a great nation. And for the longest time, he had no children. And so God is promising, you're going to be the father of many nations, and he doesn't even have one. He tries to help God out by having a relationship with his maid serpent, and God says, nope, that's not it, sorry. And finally, when he is well past the age of being able to have a son, and his wife in the same situation, he finally has a son. And his wife is so overcome with this and laughs about it when the angel tells Abraham that they name him Isaac, which means laughter. Now, in order for that promise to continue, not only does Abraham have to have a son, but so do his descendants. And he only has one. And that one is Isaac. And so it is important that Isaac also find a wife so that this line through which the Messiah will come can continue. So Abraham calls one of his most senior servants, the man he trusts to manage his entire household, and he dispatches him with a caravan of 10 camels and all their handlers to make this long journey back to Abraham's homeland. What if I can't find a bride for your son? The man asks. Wouldn't it make more sense for Isaac to travel with me so that the fair young lasses of Mesopotamia can look at him and, see what they're getting? Absolutely not, says Abraham. Isaac stays right here. Now remember, this is the son that Abraham has waited his entire life for. This is the miracle baby conceived in his old age. Abraham wants to keep this son close, where he can keep an eye on him. Nothing is going to happen to his baby Isaac, all right? But go find the boy a wife, is what Abraham instructs the servant to do. The angel of the Lord will show you what to do. Now, it's interesting that many fairy tales, have a fairy godmother or some sort of magic. And to the ancient world, that idea, that magic was there to really demonstrate that sometimes things are beyond the control of the natural. Sometimes there is a supernatural element. Now, we understand that today to be God. And again, I think Isaac, Abraham's servant, understands that as well. While that magic may creep into the fairy tales, we understand what's really at stake. So this unnamed servant sets out with his camel caravan, and they ride into the city where Abraham's kindred live. The servant has worked out a plan. He's got a little test by which God will let him know which young damsel of Mesopotamia is the right choice for his master's son. Now, the plan, interestingly enough, has nothing to do with glass slippers. It's all about water and a camel, or camels. In every ancient Middle Eastern town or village, there was a place that was notorious as a venue for romantic liaisons. No, it wasn't a singles bar. It wasn't a smartphone app. It was the village well. The village well. Now think of it. A strict society that kept girls covered from head to toe, that confined them to their houses for most hours of the day. When would the young ladies of the household emerge into the public square? Out into public. Twice a day. Once in the morning and once in the evening. And as they carried their stone jars down to the well, they would interact with each other. By hanging around the well, the eligible young men of the village could, for a few short seconds, catch a glimpse of those pretty young things who more than likely had just reached a marriageable age. If they're bold enough, if they're lucky enough, they just might exchange a few words, and then they could go home and maybe put a bug in their parents' ear so that when it came time for a marriage to be arranged, they just might be lucky and get the girl they wanted. Well, Abraham's servant understands this. He knows this is what takes place. And so it's to the village well that he goes, hoping to receive a sign from God that he's found the right woman. His test has two parts. First, the young woman has got to offer him a drink of water. Secondly, she has got to water his camels, all 10. I know it sounds like a really strange test. I mean, can you imagine a TV reality show, like The Bachelor, being all about watering livestock? Probably wouldn't get too many views now, would it? But this is more than just a random test. There's a method to his madness. A girl who offers him a drink must be kind and hospitable. A girl who takes the time to draw multiple jugs of water and dump them into the camel's drinking trough is not only a generous individual, but a hard-working individual as well. Well, as the story goes, the servant gets lucky with the first young woman he meets. Not only does she pour some water into the palm of her hand for him to drink, she also waters all 10 camels without batting an eyelash. This girl's not only good looking, but she's strong like an ox. And even more remarkable, it turns out that this woman's name is Rebecca, and she's a distant relative of Isaac. She's from Abraham's own clan. So clearly, the Lord has led him directly to the right person, the young woman whom God has already chosen, along with Isaac. This Rebecca will make Abraham the father of nations. So the servant offers Rebecca some costly gifts, a couple of heavy bracelets of solid gold and a gold nose ring. It kind of replaces the glass slipper in our story. When her family sees young Rebecca sporting all of this shiny bling, they know something's up. So they call in the family's most ferocious negotiator, a wily Uncle Laban. Now, this is the first time Laban appears in the Bible. Years down the road, Laban, as a much older man, is going to figure prominently in the story of Isaac, the son of, the story of Jacob, the son of Isaac and Rebekah. and he ends up driving a hard bargain where Jacob ends up with 2 wives, if you recall. But here, Laban's job is to negotiate the marriage contract, which he does in short order. Abraham's servant pulls out even more gold from his saddlebags, and he gives it to Rebekah's parent as a dowry. Now, mind you, nobody bothered to ask Rebekah how she felt about this, if she goes along with this plan, though she did accept the gold ring, nose ring, which probably means she was okay with the arrangement. Her parents ask Abraham's servant if they can have just 10 more days with their beloved daughter before she climbs up onto a camel and rides out of their life forever. Well, this sounds like some more of Uncle Laban's doing. Something to extend the process, to give people a chance to get out of the deal. Abraham's man, his servant, isn't so keen on the idea. I mean, a deal's a deal after all. Well, why don't we ask Rebekah? Someone asks. And yes, that's what they do. What a concept. They're going to ask the bride if she's willing. Her response is, "Bye, Mom. Bye, Dad." She's ready to go, and she leaves. Now, many weeks later, as they have traveled back, that touching scene when she sees her new husband for the first time arrives. She slides down off of the camel, pulls a veil over her face to maintain the appropriate maidenly modesty. And the Bible tells us that Isaac took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. And, as is true with most fairy tales, they live happily ever after. Well, you can see that there are a number of things in this story that are very Cinderella-like. A woman whose job it is to gather the water, to do the chores, ends up marrying a man who will be a prince, and she will be a princess. And so we see that there are some similarities in Rebekah's story. Now, another possible story, and I didn't see anybody that mentions this, the second story that is Cinderella-like is the story of Esther. Here's a simple Jewish girl who becomes a princess, and as a result, she saves her people. And once again, in the story, they live happily ever after. Well, we have 2 stories, Rebekah and Esther. The third, however, is my favorite. The book of Ruth is the Hebrew version of Cinderella. Jeff, you were right. It is Ruth. Now, Ruth is a young woman who escapes a life of reproach and poverty by meeting a wealthy prince. He sweeps Ruth off her feet and makes her his bride. Now, there isn't a golden nose ring or even a glass slipper, but there is footwear involved. Unfortunately, you guys are going to have to wait until Thursday to hear that story. I think you'll be shocked. The real Cinderella story in the Hebrew Bible, in the Old Testament. Ruth. Read up on it. Take a look at who Ruth is and how she goes from poverty to being a very wealthy individual. And not only that, but like Rebekah, she is going to be of the bloodline for the Messiah, the one who is to come. Well, listen, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day. And it's good to be back with you. I hope you'll join me on Thursday. Share it with others. Please like this video. It helps so much. Yeah, it's a cliffhanger. Charlene, I couldn't help it. But I think you'll enjoy the story of Ruth and how it really does parallel the story of Cinderella, including footwear. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, read the story about Ruth. It's a very short book. I think you'll be very surprised. At any rate, like the video. Please share this video with others. It makes all the difference in the world. Thank you again for allowing me a week with my grandson and my son and daughter-in-law. We had a wonderful time at Universal Studios. Marcia and I did not continue on to Disney World. We had had enough with 5 days at Universal Studios. So we came back home so we could rest for a week before trying to get back into the regular routine. I do ask for your prayers as well. Still having some kidney issues and just need some direction. Need to kind of get my doctors all together and thinking along the same line. Sometimes that's tough, so I appreciate your prayers as well. Hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you all on Thursday at 4 p.m. God bless you.